another terror attack in London. Now, during the morning rush hour, a terrorist set off a homemade bomb on a subway train, injuring 29 and causing passengers to flee in panic. A manhunt is currently underway for the suspect, and officials have raised the terror threat level to critical in the UK, meaning another attack may be imminent. President Trump reacted on Twitter, calling for a, quote, larger, tougher, and more specific travel ban here in the United States, and said this earlier today.
I want to say that our hearts and prayers go out to the people of London who suffered a vicious terrorist attack today. I spoke with a wonderful woman, British Prime Minister Theresa May, this morning and relayed America's deepest sympathy as well as our absolute commitment to eradicating the terrorists from our planet. Radical Islamic terrorism. It will be eradicated, believe me.
Okay, we're reminded, Greg, of the differences between the prior administration and President Trump, and also trying to come out very strong, using those words again, radical Islamic terrorism, calling them out, calling for the eradication of them. This messaging coming obviously on the heels of some criticism for the president, too, on his immigration policy. It seems like he's kind of reaching out again to his base.
Well, I mean, this is what he's known for. But just to focus on the actual attack, it's another example of why we have to harden soft targets, because we will always be vulnerable. And that includes people. People have to start thinking in training. We trained for earthquakes when we were kids. You know, we've trained for mass shootings as adolescents. The crowd panicked here, and they trampled a little boy, and they hit a pregnant woman and or pushed her over. These are natural responses, what happens when people panic. But we need to, and this is how terrorism works. It creates fear, people panic, and it makes it worse. But we need to train and harden the individuals so that they know how to react to things like that. A lot of people call this a failed attempt because no one died. But every one of these attacks is successful, because every attack that happens, terrorists learn something from it, and they adjust their techniques so the next time the attack is more deadly. This could have been just a dry run. I think that what's necessary, I think these poor, the officials and experts are overwhelmed. I think they need more bomb-sniffing dogs for two reasons. They're efficient and inexpensive at sniffing out bombs, and terrorists hate them because they can't get to paradise if a dog is in their presence when they die.
So,
I
did not know that.
All right, Jillian,
I learned that today. I hope it's right.
Well, so this terror attack, and Monday was the anniversary of 9/11.
Yes.
It comes around every year. It gives us an opportunity to think about where we are in the war on terror. And I think this attack highlights, as do the ones we've seen in Western Europe in recent months, that really since 2001, everything about the terrorist threat has changed. The way that the United States responds to the terrorist threat and tries to combat it has changed. The battlefield is largely now in cyberspace. The face of these terrorist organizations has changed hands many times. We've seen organizations like ISIS rise and fall. It's not defeated yet, but it's much reduced. The thing that remains the same and that we're still not getting right is the impact that radical ideology still has on large population areas across the world. And I think that's an area where the United States, in spite of our incredible military and intelligence prowess, is still not doing enough. We've got this, I think it's called the Global Engagement Center at the State Department. It's underfunded. It's understaffed. These are the people that are responsible for fighting ISIS and radical Islamic terrorism online. This is where we need to be putting more money, more time and attention, more public political attention. I don't understand why we're not doing that, because it's attacks like this that are so low budget that really highlight, as long as people are attracted to that ideology, we're not solving the problem.
Okay, got it. All right, so Jesse, obviously thoughts and prayers go out to the people in London. It's just that anxiety or worrying when you wake up in the morning. Could something happen? Could you be the person or your family member in the wrong place at the wrong time? People relying on public transportation, which now, as we've seen, has become one of these soft targets. Unless they have people on there that are armed and there's some kind of physical deterrent, to this type of conduct. It seems like this is the direction that they're going in.
Yeah, Great Britain's our best ally, but they have to get much tougher. And I think in Trump's own way, he was trying to tell them that. No American city would tolerate this kind of repeated carnage, which we've seen over there in London. The majority of Americans agree with what President Trump is pushing in the aftermath here. We want stricter internet crackdowns on jihadi propaganda. We want to be less politically correct. We want more surveillance. And I think 60% of the American public wants the travel ban. So that's all clear. He faced a little criticism today when he pivoted from the attack to the travel ban. And I don't blame him, because all politicians seize on big moments in order to push their agenda. Every time there was a domestic terror attack in this country, President Obama pushed gun control. When you see hurricanes happen, politicians push the global warming agenda. So I don't blame him for that. He also said that Scotland Yard had their eyes on these people and caught a little heat from Theresa May, the Prime Minister. Well, he also said that the London Bridge attack was a terror attack before Scotland Yard had called it that. And he was right. So I'm sure he has great intelligence from our intelligence officials, and the guy shoots from the hip, and we just have to get used to it. You mentioned to Greg earlier, we've had 8 years of the President of the United States wait sometimes 2 days after an attack to call it a terror attack. And if a guy's yelling Allah Akbar, he's from Syria and he's stabbing people, President Obama still really wouldn't say Islamic terror. President Trump will say it. This is why we elected him. We wanted someone who was tough on terrorism. You know what? In 4 years, public might not like that. We could have Pocahontas as president. But right now, we have President Trump, and I think the media has to get used to this kind of tough talk.
All right. So, Juan, your thoughts, your reflections on what's happened in London and how it impacts us here.
Well, just to start by saying, I think it was 29 people were injured. Thank God it wasn't no one was seriously injured. Most of it flash burns from the explosion in the subway. And the second thing to say is that with regard to Trump, he was rebuked by Theresa May. I mean, she said, this is not helpful. The London police said, not helpful. And then you had the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, come out, and he was like cleaning up after the parade and said, oh, the president's just speaking generally. He didn't have any specific information. So what we have here, to my mind, is, as Jesse was saying, we know our president. We love President Trump, but goodness gracious, he speaks impetuously at times. It's almost like he's just quick to fire. And you've got to think, it's not a matter of the press, Jesse. It's a matter of our top ally, a key intelligence ally, saying, what are you doing? You are putting us and putting lives at risk by indicating to the terrorists that we have them in our sights or that we know the network they're connected with. We're not there yet. We're not putting that out. We're working this case. This is a live investigation. And so there's some, problem there with that, in my opinion. But I think the biggest problem here is one in which you see President Trump so quick to shoot at anything that fits his, as Jesse was saying, agenda. I don't see that when it comes to white supremacists down in Charlottesville. Oh, no, he isn't slow to say anything about that. And this business about saying radical Islamic terror, that's not solving the problem. Solving the problem, and Trump said this today, by the way, folks, we've got to do better on the internet, picking up on what Jillian was saying. Much better. We harden targets, but we got to fight the ideology. That's the cancer.
Could I just respond to two? There are two cultural points here. This is a far bigger problem than anything that happened in Charlottesville. This is a worldwide ideology, and the ideology, when you're talking about, it's a collision between bitter loners and the Western world. It used to be that people didn't see how others lived. If you were in Pakistan, you never knew what the Kardashians were because there was no way that you knew that. Our Western world is colliding with people who hate that. So that it's not necessarily ISIS ideology. It's just the fact that they hate the West. The other thing, too, is that you're supposed to, as an individual, say something after seeing something, especially when the authorities cannot protect you 100% of the time. As you can see, they stopped a lot of plots. They weren't able to stop this one, but they stop a lot. The point is this. If they can't protect you, somehow you have to protect yourself by saying something when you see something. However, there's a cultural blockade there that deems you Islamophobic if you say something when you see something and you might be wrong. If you are wrong, you are screwed. And so when you're on a subway or when you're on a bus and you see something and you go, I want to say something, but you know what? I don't want to end up on a blog being ripped apart. I don't want to lose my job. So I'm not going to. We have to make it okay to say things. And Juan, you know that.
I know
you
that
went through that.
right. I've been through it. But I got to say, why would you say that this is somehow bigger? It seems to me when you talk about crazed, poisonous ideologies, whether it's the white supremacists or the... I don't
Islamic...
How many people have neo-Nazis killed in the last 10 years compared to ISIS?
Last 10 years. Oh, you want to...
Islamic radicalism is everywhere.
I don't think...
I think you're having a moot argument.
Yeah.
There's no bearing on reality in this kind of argument. You know, which is worse?
I don't think...
I don't think that helps.
But Juan started it.
I'm sure of that.
And
That's
if you're
true.
feeling bad...
I'm blaming it on Juan.
If you feel like you're getting torn apart on blogs, Greg can help talk you through it.
Yes, that's true.
Exactly.
I'm a blog therapist.
In the meantime, Juan and Greg are going to go to their separate corners for a little time out. All right.